Good morning and welcome back. Today is day 339 of our 365 days of Bible study. Today we are continuing to look at those parts of the story of Jesus which are unique to St. Luke and don't appear anywhere else. And today we're looking at Luke chapter 23, verses 6 to 16. And this is Jesus appearing before King Herod, which only appears in St. Luke's Gospel, and I'll turn you around so you can read my translation with me as we look at it. On hearing this, Pilate asked whether this man was from Galilee. When he was told that he was under Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him over to Herod, who happened to be in Jerusalem at the time. Herod was glad to see Jesus. He had wanted to see him for a long time. He had heard about him and was hoping to see him perform some sign. He questioned Jesus at length, but Jesus didn't say anything. The priests and scribes standing there kept on heatedly accusing him. Herod and his troops derided him and mocked him. They threw a splendid robe around him and sent him back to Pilate. Herod and Pilate became friends that day. Previously they had been enemies. Pilate then assembled the people with the chief priests and elders, saying, "You brought this man to me, accusing him of corrupting the people. Now look, before your eyes I have questioned him, and I can't see how he is guilty of any of the things you are charging him with." Neither did Herod. That's why he sent him back to me. Look, he's done nothing that deserves the death penalty. I'll have him lashed and then let him go. The trial before Herod is not mentioned by any of the other Gospels. And some scholars have wondered whether, between daybreak and Mark's next time check at 9 a.m., which you can read about in Mark 15, verse 25, there could possibly have been enough time for so much coming and going. On the other hand, Luke, for sure, had contacts in Herod's household, whom he mentions by name in Luke 8:30. He might easily have gleaned some information from them. Elsewhere in Luke's writings, we find, early in the Acts of the Apostles, a remembered prayer. In that prayer, Herod and Pilate are both accused of complicity in the death of Jesus. It is treated as a fulfillment of Psalm 2 and Isaiah 53, if you would care to look them up. According to Luke, it was Herod's soldiers that dressed Jesus in a splendid royal robe. Herod appears to have wanted to treat the whole episode as some kind of grim joke. Nowhere else do we hear about Herod and Pilate having been enemies, and it appears that it was not only Herod but Pilate too who wanted to end this farce. Luke seems determined to tiptoe around the issue of who actually caused Jesus to die, who actually condemned him to death. Luke doesn't want to blame Herod, whom he portrays as seeing it all as a joke, and Luke then paints Pilate as a sensible man who wants to keep the peace. After this, Luke then moves to a dialogue between Pilate and the crowd. About this man, Matthew calls Jesus Barabbas, asking them whether they wanted Jesus Barabbas or Jesus the Nazarene released. And he gives in to the crowd that has been gathered by the scribes and clergy who stirred them up to cry, "Crucify him." Pilate's job was explicitly to keep the peace. And a riotous assembly on his watch, on his doorstep, could have caused him to lose his job and possibly his life. So Jesus is condemned to death by a confused mob threatening a wise but weak Roman governor. How very human, how very muddled and confusing, how very sad that God's work needed to be carried out in such a way. Well, tomorrow we're going to look at Luke's addition to the scene at Christ's crucifixion, and I'll see you then.